Welcome, friends, to The Line of Fire. 866-348-7884. That is the number to call. All right, so in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy yesterday, I made clear in a video that we put up on our Facebook page, on the Ask Dr. Brown Facebook page, and then in an article that I wrote literally with tears, breaking down as I wrote it. I think you'll feel that as you read it. A Time to Mourn, which is posted in many sites today, and you can read on our AskDrBrown.org website. I said, let us not be distracted right now by a debate about guns. Let us not be distracted responding to the God mockers. Oh, a lot of good your prayer does you. People shot in the church service. Where's your God? We're not going to get caught up in that while there's a time to grieve and mourn for those suffering. And yes, to ask God to have mercy on our nation. To ask God to have mercy on our sinful nation, on our hurting nation, on our divided nation, on our self-destructive nation, beginning with God having mercy on us in the church and awakening us. But having said all that, it is appropriate to discuss the question of guns. Now, can I say something that hopefully everyone will understand? When I see people advocating for gun control who are flipping out over another mass shooting in America, and they're angry and they're upset, I believe it's because they're upset that people were killed. I believe it's because they're upset that children, toddlers were killed in cold blood, and the young and the old wiped out in cold blood, that they're upset about that. And that's why they are saying something. At the same time, I believe those who are passionate for a right to bear arms, who are saying, look, we should have just been armed, and if you had someone, carrying and concealing, there were a couple of people properly trained, perhaps this could have been shut down. Someone said if this happened in Israel, you couldn't last more than a minute or two before the person would be shot down, because you'd have a soldier there, you'd have somebody with a gun. That's just life in Israel. Why are they saying it? Because they're upset with the bloodshed. So rather than politically dividing right now, let's agree. Let's both agree that we're terribly upset with the loss of life, the unimaginable loss of life. And I'm going to come back in a moment. I'm going to end the broadcast talking about faith, talking about eternity, talking about what about promises like Psalm 91 that would indicate we'll be protected and delivered from suffering. We'll come back to all of that, all right? But here's what I want to ask right now. Is it right and appropriate to say the real issue is we should be able to protect ourselves and therefore have access to guns? Or do guns continue to be the problem? My friend and esteemed colleague James Robinson put out a video last night, and it's getting a lot of play. He put it on his Facebook page, and it's gone viral. I'm looking at it now, over about 150,000 views. And it's gospel at the beginning and gospel at the end. It's gospel, gospel, gospel. And Jesus being our only hope. And we need to come together right now at a time like this. In the midst of it, he says something about guns. I want you to hear what he had to say. In the midst of his very clear gospel, Jesus-centered message, he says something about guns. Let's listen to James Robinson.
Don't get in a big discussion about guns and the right for honest, decent, hardworking, God-loving, God-fearing, family-loving, neighbor-loving people to be able to protect their families. We saw what happened with a rented pickup truck this week. If you've got murder in your heart and destruction, you're going to try to kill someone. Frankly, I stopped and thought, what if there had been some people in that church service that had the concealed weapon right to carry, and they were proficient? They could have stopped it. They could have stopped it before many were hurt. The pastor's daughter was killed, a teenager. Children were killed. Precious people were killed. Please know that we don't need a lot of fruitless discussions and wrangling about words that lead to the ruin of the hearers, as Paul warned Timothy. We need wise people to understand that we're going to have to be ready to defend freedom, to defend our faith and our families, and defend life. The enemy is attacking everything that pertains to life and godliness. and all-out assault on it. And it is time for God's people to stand up and say, enough is enough.
All right, again, I want to be clear. My friend's message was a gospel message from beginning to end. In the midst of it, in the midst of pointing to Jesus, in the midst of calling for prayer, in the midst of feeling the pain of those suffering, in the midst of calling for unity, that we can help one another and not hurt one another, in the midst of that and pointing to Jesus loudly and clearly, he made this statement about guns. Now, I asked the question on Twitter. I'm looking at the poll now. The wisest thing to do after the church massacre is change gun laws, arm church members, or both. 3 simple choices. I know there are infinitely more choices we can come up with, but this was the thing I wanted to focus on. So far, it's just been up a few hours, our first 330 votes. 22% said change gun laws. 55% said armed church members. 23% said both. All right, so this is something to discuss. Obviously, it's not feasible to have a law enforcement officer at every service. You've got so many religious gatherings in America. You have so many church services. You have people meeting in homes. You have large and small. I don't think it's feasible that you're going to get officers in every building. Plus, churches have limited budgets. They aren't going to be able to pay for someone else to be there. Can people be trained, responsible people, to carry and conceal? Is that something wise? That's a discussion to have. But it's been pointed out that there was a neighbor who heard what was happening and came out with his rifle and apparently wounded the shooter. Apparently was able to shoot accurately enough to wound him despite the vest he was wearing. And then the man took off and then apparently ultimately shot himself. Listen to what Governor Greg Abbott had to say with reference to that.
He was perhaps surprised and shocked when a neighbor came out and did shoot him and connected with him.
The neighbor, so he was struck? So the assailant was hit?
The assailant was hit by that neighbor. We do have, at least I was told that by Texas law enforcement, before he got into the car and ran away. And it could have been the fact that it was hit by the neighbor's gunshot that caused him to drop his weapon.
All right. You can weigh in if you like. We may take a few calls. 866-34-TRUTH, 866-348-7884. Our focus is not going to be on guns. Let others discuss that. There are plenty of other stations discussing it. Right wing, left wing, secular, religious. There are plenty of others. We want to focus ultimately on spiritual responses in the midst of suffering and pain. But do you believe that a situation like this points to the need for tighter gun control laws? How is it that this man who had been court-martialed for assaulting his wife and child in the past apparently was able to get guns by filling out the questionnaire, doing what he had to do, and then you check the database and he came through all right? Now, I've read 2 reports. I've read one that said he couldn't get a permit because of the court-martial. I've read another that said he was able to get a gun, so maybe it's different settings, different. Don't know. I don't know what happened, all right? But is this a time to be focusing on that? Or do we say, look, there are over 300 million guns in America. You're not going to get rid of guns. The thing is you need responsible gun control. Wherever you stand on this, and I've gotten hit from both sides. Amazingly, I had a guy, I actually had to block him on Facebook. I don't see most of the posts, but I happened to notice his posts were aggressive and saying I was a Christian in name only because I wasn't willing to discuss changing gun control laws. Hang on. My whole video was to say now is not the time when you've got the bodies of the slaughtered little children blown to bits on the floor of the building because it's a crime scene. You have to leave it like that for a period of time as the investigators come in. So it's last night. You have the blood still fresh on the ground. Come on, let's not have the debate about guns right now. That was my point. You're a Christian in name only because you won't debate guns. Actually, I got a lot of attack. I got a whole lot of attack a couple of weeks ago when I wrote articles saying, how did Jesus get connected to guns? I said, I'm not debating gun control here, but how in the world did Jesus get the gospel and guns kind of go hand in hand in parts of American culture? How in the world did that happen? And I said, don't lose Luke 22 and Jesus apparently saying go buy swords. Or did he actually mean that holds everybody as a mandate for going out and buying guns? So I'm getting attacked from the gun control people, and I'm getting attacked from the Second Amendment people, whereas I actually even haven't said anything about it either way. But can we at least agree that our goal is to reduce bloodshed in America? Can we both agree on that? We'll be right back.